everyone. It's the Hatening. It's Hoop. I hope you guys are liking these like storytelling episodes, by the way. I have a few more that I'm going to do. And then depending on how well received they are, maybe I'll do more, or I don't know. But I just have a lot of these, and I figured they would make pretty good episodes, pretty good content. So I want to tell a story today. And I've told it on other shows, other podcasts. So if you've heard this before, I do apologize. And it's kind of a longer one, but I'm going to try and condense it. But it was the summer of 2010, and it was between my freshman and sophomore years of college, and I was in a band, and we decided that we were going to tour the country in a minivan. And I had never booked a tour like this, on this like distance and time and all that stuff. I didn't really know how to do it or what to expect. So I ended up booking an entire US tour in about 17 days, I think it was. It was under 20 days and it was pretty ridiculous, right? So it basically was like play a show, drive 10 hours, play a show, drive 10, 15 hours. Like we were really, 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 really covering a lot of distance on that trip. And it was a lot of fun. It really was great. Probably ill-advised, but it was a lot of fun, right? It was like my first time playing everywhere west of Maryland, basically. Made a lot of good friends, all that stuff, right? Now, we played in California, and we had some weed, and we had some days off, basically, between California and Texas. So we were basically just like, fuck it, we're just going to drive straight through. Like, I think we maybe crashed in Arizona one night, but for the most part, you know what I mean? It was just, we're driving for days to get to Texas to hang out with our friends in like Dallas, Fort Worth area, right? So we, at the time, like, my friends and I weren't really doing drugs, right? Like, I hadn't really developed any type of like actual drug problem. Like, none of us had. We just smoked a lot of weed, right? And we had a couple Adderall pills in the car that were prescribed to someone in the car. And we also had like a little bit of codeine cough syrup in the car that was also prescribed to someone who was in the car, right? And we just had them, in case we needed them or wanted them because of our like long driving schedule, whatever. The only issue is that the person who brought these things ended up scratching their name off of the bottle because they thought that it would be better if we got caught that their name wasn't on it if they weren't around, as opposed to if their name was on it, which, like, obviously, like, now is a dumb idea, but at the time we were like, whatever, I was like 19, whatever, okay. So yeah, we drive from California and we crash in Arizona, I think. And so then we keep on going, and we get to Texas and decide that we're just going to drive straight through. Like, I was asleep in the back when we get like really into like the heart of like West Texas. And two of the people in the car were like awake, and they're like, fuck it, we'll just stay up and drive. And so we're like, okay, fine, whatever. So I fall asleep in the back, and I wake up to us being at what I think is just like a toll booth, right? The bright lights, we stop the car, there's like a bunch of people standing around, and quickly realize it is not a toll booth, and instead it is a border patrol checkpoint. We didn't cross the border or anything, it's just on that stretch of the highway down there. And so, yeah, I didn't know what was really going on, but apparently like the other guys had like smoked a blunt like right before we got there. And so the car smelled like weed, and we rolled down the window, and The Border Patrol guy basically leans in and looks at all of us and tells us to get out of the car. So we get out of the car. They line us up like away from the vehicle, right? And the guy comes over and he's like, all right, look, we know that you guys have drugs. We can smell the weed. So either you give it to us right now, or we're going to look through your vehicle and we're going to tear this shit apart. You know, we had like all of our gear in there. So we're like, fuck it. Like, okay, take our fucking shit, because we had like less than an eighth of fucking weed on us, right? We had like maybe a gram or two. So we hand him, stupidly, like this fanny pack that had the weed in it. But that's also where this cough syrup, and I'm talking like maybe like a shot, like a capsule size, like a plastic cap thing on top of the cap, like shot of the cough syrup, and then maybe 2 or 3 Adderall. And so the guy looks through the bag and he's like, oh, like, you know, you guys fucked up. Like this stuff's all like a felon in Texas, basically. He tries to do all this like, you guys are fucked now thing. And we're like, okay, like, God damn it, whatever. Like, can't do anything about it, I guess. So they walk us into the station and they handcuff us to these like chairs. And then like one by one, they like take us into the other side of this huge open room and like try to like, they like very sloppily like pat us down, you know, and like ask if we have any more fucking drugs, and we say no, and then try and get us to like say who like owns the drugs or whatever, but like none of us would say anything, because like at the time, like 2 of the people had like priors, and then like I was going to school on student loans, so if I got charged with like a drug thing, I would like lose my school money and have to like drop out. And then the other guy just like, you know, like he didn't want to fucking fess up to it or whatever. So they separate us into 2 groups and throw us into these holding cells. And we're in these holding cells for like 5 or 6 hours. And it was like 60 degrees or 70 degrees in those cells. It was fucking cold, right? And it's just like a metal slab to sit on, and then just like a little fucking toilet to, you know, take a shit in or whatever. And finally, like one of the guys whose like parents owned the van, he was like, fine, fuck it. Like it was my stuff. Like I'll take the rap. I just want to get this over with. So they sign over the van to me, and they're like, okay, look, like we are going to, like a cop is coming, and the cop is going to take that guy, like, and put him under arrest. And then you guys are going to follow him, drive and follow him to the police station, where you're going to hand over the vehicle as evidence. You know, it's like, and if you try to run, we'll like fucking, you know, we'll run you off the road. Like all this kind of like, you know, big Texas justice stuff. Again, like all of us are like in our late teens, early 20s, and weigh at most 115 pounds. You know what I mean? So we get to the police station and hand over the vehicle, all of our gear's in it. They put our buddy under arrest. There was a really awkward moment where we had to like claim our possessions that were like in our pockets and stuff. And so I grabbed all my stuff, and I had like a condom in my wallet. And so I like had to claim like a single condom. And then the cop like made a bunch of like weird like insinuations that like we were all having gay sex with each other in the van, which was like very funny. I mean, it's still very funny, but it was like really funny at the time how like grossed out he was that like I had a condom. And you know what I mean? Like, what you need a condom for in a van full of boys, like that kind of shit. So, the 3 of us get released. 1 guy's in jail, 3 of us get released, and they basically tell us like, oh yeah, like you can call in like later today or like tomorrow and figure out like what's going on. So we're like, okay. And we talked to the guy who's about to get arrested. And he basically was like, you know, like, don't tell my parents. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, blah blah blah. So like, all right, cool. So we're in a little town of Sierra Blanca, Texas, which we find out is just completely inhabited by Border Patrol. It's like a Border Patrol town. Very, very, very small. And there's like a diner, a gas station, like 2 motels, like a trailer park, then like a suburban neighborhood, like through 12 school, and that's about it, right? So we walk to the other end of this town, and there's like a motel, and there's like some migrant workers and like some other like just people passing by staying, and we get a room. And we end up spending the next few days basically just like hanging out in this motel room, calling the police station every couple hours to find out what's going on with our friend. And it finally gets to the point where it's been like a few days, right? And so we're calling our friends back home, and we're like, I had to call my parents to ask for money for this motel because we're going to be there more than like a night or two, so we had to get like extended stay. We don't have a vehicle. We're like stuck here. We don't really know what to do because we're in the middle of nowhere, like 100 miles from like a grocery store, middle of nowhere. And yeah, so eventually our buddy, we get to talk to our buddy who's inside, and he says that he's going before a judge like later that day, and then like they'll be letting him out and all this stuff, right? Cool, awesome. So while this is happening, again, like we are living in a motel off the highway in deep West Texas. There's nothing to really do, and so the two other people who I'm with are like real antsy and real like fuck it, like we'll do whatever vibes, like entertain themselves. I was completely fine just sitting in this motel room watching like Marley and Me on repeat or whatever was on like the 4-channel TV that was in there, just to kind of like disassociate my way to a point where we could like leave. And so at this motel, there were these two people who were kind of like lurking around, right? They had like a truck, and they were a couple. It was a man and a woman, and they were like real methy, real rough looking. And they were just like kind of lurking around, right? And so we would sit outside and like smoke cigarettes and like do whatever, and they'd always be kind of like looking at us and like trying to talk to us. And the other guys would like talk to them a little bit, but I would always like go inside because I didn't want to deal with anything. I like wasn't in the mood, right? And so this kept on happening where like the other two guys would like kind of hang out with this like methy couple, and I wouldn't. And then finally, like one day, it was the day that we learned that our buddy was getting out, like the next day or whatever, right? And so we get invited to like hang out with them, like, and do all this stuff, and we're just like, I don't know, like blah blah blah, like I don't really want to, but like we end up like kind of hanging out with them like in this parking lot, and it was fine. It was a little weird, but it was fine. And so now it's like we're like buddies or something. I don't fucking know. And so the next day, our friend gets out of jail, and we go to the diner. And of course, like everyone who's like in this town like knows that we're out of town. We've been there for a couple days now. Everyone knows we're from out of town. Our buddy's in jail. We're waiting for him to get out. Blah blah blah. So he gets out. People in the diner are clapping. Like we eat. We go back to the motel. We're hanging out. And the methy people show up, and they're like, hey, like blah blah blah, like your buddy's out, like let's celebrate, let's party at our place. And the other guys are like, okay. And I'm like, this is a terrible idea, but whatever. And so they're like, okay, look, like we have food. If you guys buy a 30 rack, then we'll like celebrate. And we're like, all right, whatever. So we go to their house, which is about 2 miles down a dirt road, and it ends up being a single wide with like a very shoddy addition built on the back in the middle of the desert, right? So we're just like, fuck, okay. So we get out, and we're like running around. They're showing us around the property, and you know, the guy's like, oh, do you want to see something cool? And we're like, all right. So we're walking in the brush, and we see like this tree with like a thing tied to the top. And, you know, he explains like this is a place where, you know, illegal immigrants that cross over the river, they look for these spots, and there's like clean water and food for them to get cleaned up. And then they walk to the highway to get picked up as hitchhikers, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, oh, that's cool. And the guy's like, nah, fuck that shit, you know? And so he like dumps out the water and like dumps out the clothes and like stomps on them and stuff. And we're like, oh, okay, whatever. So we go back to the guy's house, and we're like stranded. Like we don't have a car. Like they drove us out there. Like we are like stuck, right? And this other group of people show up who are like living in the motel, and we're all like sitting around, and we're drinking beer and listening to like music on a jukebox, and it's like kind of chill. It's kind of weird, but kind of chill. Context. So the couple that live in this trailer, the guy was full of prison tattoos, like stick and pokes. He had game over tattooed on his eyelids. Just like, you know, crazy tattoos all over his body. The girl had snitches are a dying breed tattooed down her arm. Like they definitely were something, you know. And they had like all these like very methy like physical tics and stuff. So we are hanging out outside, and then all of a sudden we hear like something coming down the road, right? And nothing was coming down this road, right? Because the road basically led from the town to the river. And the guy who lived in the trailer was like, "Oh shit!" Like, you know, turn off all the lights and the music and get behind the trailer and like get down. And we're like, "What?" And he gets real serious and he's like, "Turn everything the fuck off and get the fuck back there now." So we're like, okay. So we run behind this trailer and get down, and then we see like a tractor trailer, a 16-wheeler riding down the road, and it's flanked in the front and the back by 2 dirt bikes and 2 4-wheelers each, right? So there's, you know, 4 dirt bikes, 4 4-wheelers surrounding this fucking truck that's going towards the river. And we're like, what the fuck is that? You know, and the guy's like, oh, that's the cartel. And if they see us outside, like if they see us see them, they're going to come over here and kill all of us. And that was like some real shit, because when we rolled into the town like 2 days beforehand, like some dude went fishing with his son and saw the cartel doing like a border crossing and like shot the guy and like left the son alive or some crazy shit. You know what I mean? So there was like a lot of like warnings on like the radio and like in the gas stations and stuff where it's like, don't go camping, like don't go fishing unless it's like designated areas, because like it's wild down here, right? So we're like, oh shit, right? So we kind of start hanging out again, and then we hear them coming back like a half hour, 45 minutes later, and then they leave, and everything seems to be cool. So we go inside to eat dinner, and they're like, oh, we got hamburger helper, like blah blah blah. And we're like, okay, that's cool. And it tastes kind of weird, but also like, you know, it was like cooked on like kind of, you know what I mean? It's like not ideal cooking conditions. So like it was fine. Like it was like a little sweet, but it was okay. And so we eat and we're drinking beer, and the couple who lives at the house starts getting drunk, and they start talking about their child. And we're like, what the fuck? And so then they go on to explain that, you know, that they were pregnant and they had a child, a stillborn, and all this stuff. And so we're like, oh my God, that sucks. Like we're so sorry. And they're like, oh no, it's okay. Like, do you want to see pictures? And then they had just like pictures of like this stillborn baby in like baby clothes, like hanging up on this mantle in their house, acting like it's completely normal. And we're like, oh dude, like what the actual fuck, right? Like it was really fucking gnarly. They had like the bedroom like set up for the kid that like obviously no one went into type of thing, but like the rest of the house was like real messy and grimy. And we were just like, oh fuck, okay, like this is getting kind of weird. We should leave soon. But we keep on drinking and we're hanging out. And then just kind of like out of nowhere, they start talking about like illegal immigrants coming around. And the guy just starts talking about how easy it is to kill illegal immigrants as they are crossing the border. And so, you know, he tells us this whole like, oh yeah, like, you know, you see them and you can lure them into the house with like food and water. And then like, you know, you can like just kill them. And then he goes on to describe like getting rid of bodies, you know? And so he's like, oh yeah, you just like, you take the meat off like it's like a deer or something, and you take the bones and you crush them with a hammer in a sack and spread it around the desert, and then you take the meat and grind it up and like trade it or sell it like it's like wild game and no one knows the difference. And we think they're just like talking like wild shit, you know what I mean? Like none of us believe that they actually do this stuff. It's just kind of like a theoretical thing or something. We're like, all right, whatever, dude, like ha ha ha, sure. And so I go to the refrigerator to get more beer. And when I go into the refrigerator, like the freezer door's kind of open, and I look inside and there's nothing in there but like hand packaged, like huge quantities of meat. And these people, like, they didn't seem like hunters, and they did not have any money. They didn't really have anything in that fridge. And so I put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, oh no, did we just like eat like an illegal immigrant? Did we just like eat somebody? Like, what the fuck, right? So I go back to the group and I kind of like isolate my guys, and I was like, we need to get the fuck out of here, like right now. And they're like, what? And I was like, we need to go. Like, we need to get out of here. And so I make up some excuse, like, is why we need to leave. And then we do leave. And like, I tell everyone what happened. And like, I think they all believed me. And like, they came to the same conclusion as I did. It was like one of those things where like, we've all talked about it, but like, it was so fucking wild and so crazy that it's kind of just like, maybe you should repress that. Maybe you should repress that memory, you know? And so like a couple days later, like we get the van back and someone from Hagerstown comes and picks us up. And like there were a bunch of like wild dogs that were hanging out at these people's house, and they were like going to kill them all on like the day that we were leaving. So we like went to say bye to these people, which was really a cover for us to like steal a dog. So then we like left with like a dog in tow. It was just, that was like one of the wildest weeks of my entire life. But yeah, I mean, that is probably the story of me being a cannibal. I think that I did eat someone who was murdered in the desert, which sucks. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, if you like the show, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. Andrew and I really do appreciate it. Give us the good reviews, you know, tell your friends, all that stuff. But if not, just keep on listening. That'd be cool too. But yeah, take care of yourself and the people around you, and don't forget to tell your friends you love them.